Welcome to the fifth module in our public diplomacy course. This module focuses on public diplomacy campaigns. Whether we're doing public diplomacy online or offline, whether we're using digital tools or physical events, it is always more effective if we can combine different approaches in complementary ways that are going to reinforce what we're trying to achieve. It means that when we think about public diplomacy campaigns, our first task is to think about what are the policy objectives we're trying to achieve. Going back right to the first modules and comments I made in the video introducing that first module, public diplomacy must be tied to foreign policy objectives. What are we trying to achieve? That is, if we're a government, if we're an international organization, it's the organization's objectives. If we're an NGO, it's the objectives of the NGO. But in all cases, we have policy objectives that we want to achieve. And we have decided that public diplomacy can help us achieve those objectives. That's not always the case. In some cases, we don't need to do public diplomacy. In some cases, it's more effective simply to speak to a government on back channels without publicizing what we're doing. But assuming that we believe that we need to change the opinion or influence the opinion of key target audiences in foreign countries so that they will influence the key decision makers in those countries, then we need to develop a campaign closely tied to our policy objectives. And once we've got our policy objectives decided, we need to start thinking with whom we're going to work. Now, the reason to think about with whom we're going to work is that public diplomacy is always more effective if we can find surrogates to do the heavy lifting for us. If you're a government diplomat, this is particularly true because as government diplomats in foreign countries, we often lack credibility. It's assumed that anything we say will simply be because our government has told us to say it. Therefore, if we want to influence foreign public opinion, if we want to influence foreign debates, it's much more effective if we can find other people from our societies, NGOs, academics, companies even, who will do the talking on our behalf, who will do the persuading on our behalf, surrogates who will have more credibility than us. And much of the role of the public diplomat serving abroad is to identify partners in foreign countries with whom we can work. In a sense, a public diplomat abroad is a kind of diplomatic entrepreneur, a matchmaker who puts together organizations from the country he or she is serving in, whether they be civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, companies, arts groups, cultural groups, with similar groups in his or her own country, so that they can work together. They can do the public work between them with just guidance from behind by your public diplomats. So identifying the people that you're going to work with, if you like, your diplomatic stakeholders, both at home and abroad, is a key part of a public diplomacy campaign. But then you're going to want to think about a whole range of tools that you might want to use. As I suggested before, one of the most effective things we can do with digital technologies is to use them to promote content we've created in non-digital activities, whether it's conferences, whether it's workshops, whether it's cultural events, and putting those together with online, or putting those events online, whether it be in the form of videos on YouTube, shorter videos in TikTok, referring to them on our Twitter feed, referring to them through Facebook or other social media platforms, depending on what countries we're working in. All of this should come together as an online, offline public diplomacy campaign. But then once you've done that, while you're still at the design phase, you've got to decide how you're going to evaluate your campaign. An evaluation of public diplomacy is as difficult as evaluating diplomacy. It's not just a question of reaching out to a lot of people or having a lot of people attend events that you've helped organize. That is of little value if you don't actually advance towards the policy objectives you set for yourself. To give a real case example, the Boko Haram group of terrorists in northern Nigeria in around 2015, 2016, kidnapped 200 schoolgirls from a village called Chibok. There was a campaign, #BringBackOurGirls, on social media, a very effective campaign in the sense that it went viral. Michelle Obama was photographed holding the #WeBringBackOurGirls on a piece of card in the Oval Office of the White House, almost a definition in that period of going viral. How many of the girls did it bring back? Well, none. Who benefited from the campaign? Probably most. Boko Haram, who as terrorists got wonderful global publicity out of it. The lesson that it's not just a question of being successful in the reaching out to lots of people, bringing lots of people in, your colleagues saying how professional your public diplomacy is. That's of no value if it doesn't affect or it doesn't help you achieve the objectives you set at the beginning. So thinking about your evaluation comes when thinking about the objectives. In other words, it comes while you're planning your campaign, not something you think about afterwards. Anyway, I hope you find this module useful and interesting. It helps you plan public diplomacy campaigns in the future. Thank you.